Hello there. Thank you for joining me. This is the How to Understand and Support Your Child or Teen with Mood Difficulties Parent Information Workshop. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this information session, and I really hope that it's helpful for you and you take away some really great information. I always like to start with a land acknowledgement. So I think it's just so important that we acknowledge who was on the land before us, but also how we appreciate the land now, and take some time just to reflect on who will be on the land in the future. So we here in the Durham region respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island. So my name is Kim Sundell. I'm one of the social workers here at Durham Catholic. I've been here for around 10 years, and I've worked both in the elementary and the secondary schools. So working with students who are struggling with their mood has been a big part of my work here at the board, and also part of my work before I came here. So here's our agenda for the Parent Information Workshop. I'm going to share some information about mood difficulties and how they are different in children and teens. I'm going to give you lots of information about how you can talk to your child or teen about about their mood. This can sometimes be a challenge and can stump us as parents, and so I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for that. Also, some ways that you can support your child's mental health. Important to know that there are tons of ways that we can do that. And so I'll talk a lot about that today. And then also resources. There's lots of great resources out there for parents and kids and teens. And so I'll share some of that with you. Before I start with this video, I wanted to just acknowledge, and I always like to highlight the fact that in this presentation, I use the word mood and depression interchangeably. So by no means am I suggesting that your child has depression or meets the criteria for a diagnosis of depression because of some of the symptoms that they experience. But you'll notice that in lots of the media and lots of the information that you can read about mood difficulties, they do describe it as depression. So I always like to point that out for parents. So I wanted to show this video. It's a really great kind of description of what depression or mood difficulties can feel like. It was created by CAMH, so that's a pretty well-known mental health agency in Canada. And so I just think it's a great way for us to start.
Understanding our emotions can be complicated. Sometimes our emotions change positively and we feel joy, excitement, happiness, and pride. But other times our emotions change negatively, like when we feel stress, sadness, frustration, or guilt. These kinds of changes in our emotion happen to everyone. But when you have depression, negative emotions usually last for a longer period of time and start to affect your day-to-day life. Many people will start to experience these challenges during childhood and adolescence, but it can happen at any point in your life too. Depression can look differently for many people, but most will experience three main things: feeling irritable or easily frustrated, feeling sad, and just feeling meh or empty. When this happens, you may experience challenges like trouble with sleep and restlessness, trouble concentrating, experiencing repeated negative thoughts and emotions about yourself and others, and no motivation to do anything like your chores or things you usually want to do. Changes in your eating habits or activity level, feeling sore like having backaches, headaches, or struggling with your relationships. And depression can have different causes. It can sometimes relate to your different life experiences or the things going on in the environment around you, like at home, school, or in your community. But there are also genetic factors that can cause depression. If your parent has experienced depression, you may be more likely to experience it too. Or biological factors, like the amount of chemicals we have in our brain, like serotonin and dopamine, which can affect our mood. Another possible cause of depression has to do with thought patterns. Repetitive, negative, and disruptive thoughts make it harder to maintain a healthy headspace. And all of this doesn't happen in a bubble. Other struggles, like anxiety, trauma, or substance use may also shape your experience with depression. There are still a lot of stigma and stereotypes around mental health and depression. Because we can't see depression like we can see a broken arm or a bruised knee, it makes it difficult for others to understand. Your family and friends may react in different ways. Some may be supportive and others just might not get it. But regardless of how others see it, depression is still very real. Learning more about your mental well-being can help you and others in your life better understand your experience. Reaching out for support and accessing treatment like therapy and for some people medication may help you to get better and stay well. So thanks for watching, and check out our video on how eating, movement, and sleep can impact your mood.
So whenever I watch that video, there's lots of great information there, and we'll touch on some of that in this workshop. But it's also just so important to highlight that mood difficulties start in childhood and adolescence. And so lots of times we think of mood difficulties or depression as an adult's problem, but it's not. It's a problem for kids and teenagers as well. So let's go over some of the signs of mood issues for your child. So a child may seem sad or unhappy most of the time. In younger children, this is something that we notice, that they just seem unable to enjoy things and just sad or talking about being sad. They might be irritable or cranky or aggressive. Lots of times we may see this through temper tantrums or difficulties interacting with family or siblings. And it's really just about that irritability. And it's about that irritability being there most of the time. They may say negative things about themselves. So I'm not good at anything. No one likes me. It's always my fault. So feeling negative about themselves and their efforts, what people think about them, those statements, hearing those statements can be a sign of a mood difficulty. You might notice that they just don't have as much energy as they used to. So they may have been a very active and energetic child. And then you notice that they're laying around much more, watching TV much more, not kind of active in the ways that they used to be. You may notice that they don't want to be around friends and family, so they opt out of things, are difficult to engage or difficult to get them interested or willing to go out and be with others. You might notice they're not interested in doing or playing things that they used to. So it's normal for kids to change what they like. But if they really, really like something and then all of a sudden don't like anything at all, that can be a reason to be concerned. They also could have problems with their sleep. So sometimes nightmares or difficulties falling asleep. These can all be signs of mood issues for your child. With teens, it's a little bit different. So a lot of times low mood is one of the things that we notice, and really just that irritability, getting very over the top when we think that the situation just doesn't warrant that, and it being something that happens for them most of the time. Diminished interest or loss in pleasure of almost all activities. So not being able to be interested in doing things that they used to. You might see a significant weight change or an appetite disturbance. So you may notice that they're gaining or losing or just not able to eat in the same ways as they used to. Difficulties thinking or concentrating is something that we notice that we don't always associate with mood, but just being indecisive, not being able to make a decision, needing to come to you lots about basic decisions that they would have been able to handle before. Sleep disturbance, so sleeping too much or too little. Normal for teens to sleep much more than we would expect, or to have different sleeping patterns because of all of the development that's happening for them at that developmental stage. But it's kind of noticing that they just are changing in their sleep and that it's happening all the time and for long periods of time. You might see that they're physically restless or lethargic. So those are two different sides of the continuum. So you might see kids who are just unable to settle, very, very needing to move a lot, not able to stay calm. Or you might see kids who are lethargic or lazy, just not able to kind of get off the couch and do anything. Fatigue or loss of energy. Your kids may talk about feelings of worthlessness, so deeper than the guilt that a child may feel, but just feeling that they're not worth anything, that their academic abilities, their social abilities, their future is just not worth anything. The other thing that you might hear your child talk about is thoughts of self-harm or suicide. And whenever your teen talks to you about this, we would recommend that you see a doctor about that. Lots of times that can mean that someone has had some mood difficulties they've been trying to manage for a very, very long time, but it's also serious and needs some extra attention. So going to a doctor, reaching out to a crisis line, accessing a counselor, all of those things are super important if your teen does talk to you about suicide or self-harm. What are some of the differences between adult and teenage depression? So there are some differences that we see, and when we aren't aware of these differences, we may minimize some of these things in teens. So in teens, anger or irritability is kind of more predominant than sadness. So in adults, or kind of traditionally in the media, depression is associated with sadness, and that's not to say that teens cannot be sad, but we see anger and irritability much more with them. We can see them being more oversensitive to criticism or rejection versus extreme feelings of worthlessness. Not to say that they can't have feelings of worthlessness, but we just notice them being much more sensitive to criticism from adults, teachers, peers, much more sensitive to their relationships mostly with their peers, and they can feel rejection much, much bigger than we may think that it is. We may see selective withdrawal rather than complete isolation. For adults, sometimes it's complete isolation from people and activities. But with teens, you might notice that it's selective. So they may withdraw from some people, such as parents or some social groups, but be able to keep up with some friendships. And sometimes this can be confusing because although they refuse to do things with certain people, they'll agree with some people. And so we might think that they're totally fine, and they might be, but they also might be struggling with their mood. Also, unexplained aches and pains. Teenagers can be super prone to those physical aches and pains, part of that due to the amount of growth that they're going through during that time. And it makes them a bit more aware and sensitive with their bodies. And so they may describe aches and pains as a way that their mood difficulties kind of present. I wanted to just focus a little bit on normal teen behavior versus depression or mood difficulties. You've heard me say that some of the symptoms or the things that you might notice for your teen might be normal teenage behavior. And so I wanted to just unpack that a little bit more. So normal behavior for a teen would be lower than normal grades when they're transitioning to middle school or high school, or even a lower than normal grade in one class. So during that transition period, especially from elementary school to high school, it's a huge change in the workload, in the teaching style, in the course load. And so to see them needing some time to adjust to that and to see a reduction in their grades at that point makes a lot of sense. Also, kids have strengths and weaknesses. So to see that someone is not doing well in math, but excellent in English, very, very normal. A concern for depression would be a total decline in their grades. So a decline in all their grades across the board and a bit abrupt. So that's a reason and a difference from normal behavior. Normal behavior for a teen is to have changes in taste for certain foods. We know that teens are figuring themselves out, figuring out what they like and don't like. And so for them to change their taste for certain foods makes absolute sense. But a concern for mood difficulties or depression might be if you see changes in their eating patterns. So you notice that they never eat breakfast or lunch and maybe only sometimes eat dinner. You might notice that they're not eating any snacks like they used to. Just changes in the eating patterns that may lead to some weight gain or weight loss. Changes in preferred activities, totally normal for teens. So again, figuring themselves out, they're trying things out, they're seeing what they like and what they don't like. A concern for depression may be if you see a decreased interest in activities that they previously liked. But there's also not an interest in other things. So changing your interest from one thing to another makes a lot of sense. But if you see them not enjoying anything at all and not replacing things that they used to like with new things, that can be a reason to be concerned. Other serious reasons for concern around depression or mood issues, like I said before, is self-injury or thoughts of suicide. Hearing them say that they would rather be dead, think they would be better off dead, wanting to die. And sometimes those are things that kids say to us, or sometimes we might see it in drawings or in writing. And again, if you hear or see anything like this for your teen, we would recommend that you go to the doctor or access a crisis line to figure out a plan to support them. A couple more. So normal behavior, shifts in mood that seem out of proportion to the triggering incident from our perspective. So this is kind of more isolated incidents where you notice that they kind of get really, really big feelings really, really fast, but it's not for everything. A concern for mood difficulties or depression would be if it's more persistent and it's across everything. So you see that out of proportion reaction to pretty much everything for a long period of time. Normal behavior is to have strong reactions to seemingly minor incidents. A concern for depression or mood issues would be more explosive behavior that could be verbally or physically aggressive. So really just seeing things that are much more extreme for your kids compared to what the situation is. Normal behavior is a decreased interest in socializing with family. Fortunately or unfortunately, as kids get into the teenage years, they want to be friends with their friends. They want to be spending time with their friends. Everything is about their friends. And so this is totally normal for teens, a totally normal part of their teen development. On the flip side, if you see that they're not wanting to be with friends, that they're not wanting to spend time with them, that they're turning down invites or refusing to go or going and not staying very long, just that decreased interest in being with their friends can be a reason to be concerned. Normal behavior is sleeping late on weekends and being late for school in the mornings. One of the things we know about teen development is that their serotonin levels are totally different than ours. And so when we wake in the morning, we're ready to go. But for teens, it's totally different. And so it makes absolute sense that they need to sleep later than us because their sleep cycles are flipped from ours. But a concern for depression or mood difficulties would be if you see them sleeping all the time, or if you see that they just cannot get out of bed ever. And again, you've probably heard me say over and over again for a long period of time, because you really want to see these things happening for, more than just an isolated period of time that could be related to some increased stress. You want to, if you are concerned, it would be something that is a bit more long lasting and a bit more frequent. So just along those lines, when to be concerned, we kind of talk about this as the 4Ds. And so this kind of summarizes the times where if you see any of those things in your teens and you see them in these ways, you may want to access some support for them. So noticing a change in disproportion, so the intensity or the frequency of their mood changes. So noticing that they're happening more often and that they're much more extreme. Duration, so doesn't disappear over time as expected. A lot of times, like I said, if kids are experiencing stress, we're going to see changes in them. But if it doesn't go away over time, that duration could be a reason for concern. Disruption, so the level of interference with their daily activities, their well-being, their ability to be involved with friends, do well at school, work their part-time job. If there's any disruption, that can be a reason to be concerned. Or distress. So if you see an unexpected level of distress, so you see some of those extreme behaviors either in overt things like physically or verbally aggressive, or some of the other implicit things that you might see like the sleep issues or the lethargy, that kind of thing. I always think it's so important to include this slide because there's lots of hope to help our kids, even if they're struggling with their mood. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the teeter-totter, innate vulnerability. So some kids biologically or their thought patterns kind of make them more predisposed to mood difficulties. And when you add on stressors of being a teenager, being in school, social difficulties, that can really weigh down their teeter-totter. But on the flip side, on the other side, if we really help them learn coping skills and we make sure that they have the right supports in us as parents, but also with professionals, we can tip that teeter-totter the other way, or at least balance it. And so it's really important to know that by seeking support for your teen or your child, you can really make a difference in helping them manage. So how to talk to your child or teen about their mood. So make the first move. Lots of times we think that we have a very open relationship with our kids, and we probably do. But sometimes with mood, it can be more difficult for them to approach us with that. And so making the first move can let them know that you're open to that kind of a conversation and to talking about that kind of material. But also it can help them open up because you've started the conversation. Modeling, practicing, and summarizing feelings. This is really the idea around, showing our kids how we feel, saying it out loud, narrating it, but also practicing coping skills right in front of them. And so that idea that our kids are always watching us, and the more we can narrate how we feel, why, and what we did, the more they can learn from that. It can be super helpful to ask questions based on observations. So really being specific with our kids about something that we've seen them do or heard them say, and asking them questions about it based on what we saw or heard. Sometimes using a simple rating scale can help open up that conversation. So one of the rating scales that I use a lot is a feelings thermometer. So that idea that different situations cause us a different range of feelings. Obviously, the bottom of our thermometer is a low level feeling, something that we're feeling just a little bit, whereas the top of the feelings thermometer is something that we're feeling really, really big. And it can be a super helpful tool to open up that conversation for kids about how they're doing, how their day was, by using a feelings thermometer. Kind of takes it outside of them and makes it easier, but also a way for them to notice how using coping skills can change how they're feeling, the intensity of what they're feeling. Offering generous empathy. This one is really important. I think as parents, we're very hardwired to problem solve for our kids. So when they come to us with something, we're quick to try and fix that for them. And really, for kids who are struggling with their mood, teens who are struggling with their mood, one of the things that they really need from us is generous, generous empathy. Helping them see that we understand where they're coming from, and not minimizing what they're feeling. Lots of times, the situations that they come to us may seem minor from our perspective, but being empathetic to what they're feeling or what they're talking about can really help them open up the conversation with us then and in the future. Helping them understand themselves. Kids and teens are kind of in that stage of trying to figure that out. And lots of times they may not notice some of the things that are good or strengths or skills that they have. And so it's not only helping them notice what they might be struggling with, but it's also really focusing on helping them see who they are as a friend, who they are as a son or daughter, who they are as a student, things that they're good at, their personality traits, just things that they wouldn't really think of noticing about themselves. That can be really, really helpful. Be a thermostat and not a thermometer. So we know a thermometer really gauges the temperature. So when you're a thermometer, you're kind of noticing that these things are happening. You might be having conversations about it, but that's kind of where it ends. Being a thermostat is really doing things to change the temperature. So being able to add certain things to their life, add certain conversations into your day to really change that thermostat and change the situation. Also, important to focus on filling up your kids. So really giving them all of the opportunities that you can for them to do the things that they're good at and that they love. So making the space in their week to be able to do that, giving them whatever opportunities you can, whether it's lessons for things or even just dollar store supplies, but really kind of helping fill them up with all of the things that are good about them and about their lives. So I wanted to just mention some steps to talking to your child or teen about their mood. So the first step is encouraging them to open up about their mood. Sometimes that can be a really, really hard thing for them to do. And so sometimes it helps to describe specifically a situation that you saw that you observed them showing low mood. You could describe a time where you've struggled with it, or you maybe saw someone else struggling with it. And you can also ask them directly if they've ever felt low mood or if they've ever struggled with any of the symptoms of depression. The next step is teaching them about mood difficulties in general. So describing symptoms, really kind of educating them about all of the different things that people can feel if they are struggling with their mood, and really highlighting the differences between normal development and times where it's a little bit different or could be a little bit more of a concern for them. Lots of people will use videos or personalized stories to be able to have those conversations and focus on those symptoms. And then step three is helping your child recognize low mood and how it presents. And that's with them in themselves. So some of the physical feelings, actions, thoughts that they themselves might be having. And lots of times using apps, tracking apps, that can track mood, and I'm going to talk about some of those in a little bit, but using some of those things where kids can kind of track what they're feeling and thinking, what situations cause that, what symptoms they were having in their body. That can also be a super, super helpful way for them to learn, but also for you to learn about them. I wanted to just give some examples of ways that you can expand on your conversations with your kids and with your teens. So the first one is about winning a game. So we all play some sort of game at some point with our kids, and a lot of times we might not win. And so we might say something like, "Oh no, I didn't win." But another way to expand on that and to kind of expand on their emotional awareness, their language for feelings, their understanding of when things happen and what to do, is saying something like, "I'm sad that I didn't win the game. I'm going to give you a hug to feel better." So identifying the feeling, why it happened, and what you could do about it. Another one. Wow, Winnie the Pooh looks like his feelings were hurt. How do you think he is feeling? So really focusing on the feelings. You could expand to what the situation was that made him feel that way, other feelings that he might be having, what he could do about it. It's really just about expanding their emotional language, language about feelings, and emotional intellect. So the tiger looks like he's feeling embarrassed. His head is down and his cheeks are red. What should he do? So again, noticing the feeling, some of the symptoms that you might see, and really opening up the conversation about what he should do. You look like you're mad because you're frowning and stomping your feet. Again, just expanding on the feeling and then what you see them doing can open up that conversation. Lots of times we'll ask kids about their day, and lots of times we'll get an answer like good, fine, okay. And so one way to get more out of them is to be a little more specific. So ask them something like, tell me something in your day that made you happy or proud, or what made you worry today? So really kind of narrowing in on some of those experiences and getting more specific for them. I got to pass out papers today. Might be something that they say they're happy about. And again, it's really trying to help them see what feeling they had when they passed out the papers, which could be proud, and why did they feel that way? Because they helped their teacher. Math is stupid, science could be stupid, English could be stupid. So it's really helping them see what feeling they're connecting with that subject and why. So maybe they're feeling worried about a math test or some sort of test they have the next day. I wanted to show this video because it's very well done as far as going through some of the basic coping skills that can help kids with their mood. And it really gives some practical strategies that parents can encourage their kids to use.
Hi, friends. Do you ever feel down, sad, or unhappy? Everyone has occasional moments of sadness or low mood, especially after difficult life events. When these feelings happen a lot or go on for a long time, we sometimes refer to this as depression. Today, you will learn about 6 different coping skills to better manage sadness and depression. Positive coping skills help you to relax and improve your mood. Coping skills can be challenging because they often require you put in effort and make changes in your life. But if you rise to the challenge, coping skills can be very helpful. Here are 6 coping skills to get you started. Number 1, behavioral activation. Sometimes lack of activity can cause your mood to be low, so increasing your activity level can be a simple solution. Behavioral activation coping skills can include both mental and physical activities. Try to balance out your daily activities in the following areas: indoor versus outdoor activities, sitting versus movement activities, individual versus social activities, and screen-based versus non-screen-based activities. Some examples of behavioral activation coping skills include positive, enjoyable hobbies, getting up and moving around, going out in nature, setting and working toward goals, or practicing creative outlets such as art, drawing, coloring, writing, painting, or building. Number 2, relaxation skills. These are particularly helpful when you are feeling depressed while also feeling anxious or irritable. In these moments, your brain benefits from feeling calm and relaxed. Examples of relaxation skills include deep belly breathing, meditation or mindfulness activities, resting or taking a nap, tensing and relaxing your muscles, imagining a peaceful place, using a relaxation app, or listening to instrumental music. Number 3, good health habits. Poor health habits negatively affect your body, which in turn can have a negative effect on your mind. Good health habits have been shown to reduce depression and improve your overall mood. Examples of good health habits include good diet and nutrition, sleeping well, exercise, drinking plenty of water, and good hygiene. Number 4, social contact. Research has shown that lack of social contact can make people more prone to depression. It can be helpful to avoid isolating yourself from others and work toward developing strong, positive connections with family and friends. Examples of social coping skills include spending time with family or friends, joining a club or sport, eating dinner with your family, having small talk with teachers or students at your school, or practicing good social skills, such as saying hi to others, eye contact, smiling, inviting someone to hang out, or active listening. Number 5, manage your thoughts. Sometimes negative thinking can contribute to your depression. It can be helpful to pay attention to your thoughts and practice realistic or balanced thinking. One simple way of doing this is by imagining yourself changing the channel from a negative thought to a neutral or positive thought. Other skills to help manage your negative thinking include notice unhelpful or negative thoughts, challenge or talk back to negative thoughts, think of 3 things you are grateful for, think of solutions to problems, or tell yourself positive affirmations such as, I can make it through the day, I will be kind to myself today, or I'm strong, I can deal with this. Number 6, increase positive brain chemicals. When you do certain activities, your brain produces happiness chemicals that help reduce depression, boost your mood, and increase motivation. These happiness chemicals include serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin. Examples of activities that produce one or more of these happiness chemicals include exercise, completing a daily task list, meditation, getting or giving a hug, playing with your pet, getting out in the sun, practicing gratitude, taking a cold shower, creating music, walking in nature, or yoga. Imagine coping with depression being like a puzzle. When you have all the puzzle pieces in place, you feel happy, relaxed, and are able to overcome challenges that come your way. Use some of the coping skills you learned about in this video to start filling in your puzzle. What other activities, thoughts, or habits do you need in your puzzle to help you feel happy and in control of your life? If you're feeling down and don't know where to start, it can help to follow a daily self-care checklist that includes simple coping skills throughout the day. Here's one example. Get out of bed. Take a shower. Get dressed for the day with clean clothes. Eat something for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Drink plenty of water. Move around. Go for a walk. Exercise. Laugh. Talk to family or friends. Get good sleep. Coping skills are not the only solution to help you manage sadness and depression. If your low mood does not go away with coping skills, then please talk to a parent, counselor, or doctor about other ways to treat depression. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. For more social, emotional, and mental health resources for kids and teens, please visit www.mentalhealthcenterkids.com. Thanks for watching!
So that video always reminds me that coping skills that really work can be things that we're already doing and we just need to do more often in a more regular way. So that video, I always think it's a great one to show kids because it really helps them see that there are really, really down-to-earth, everyday ways that they can impact their mood. So you'll see on the screen here the think, feel, do triangle. So this is a very popular concept that's part of the cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT, manualized programs. So CBT is a well-researched counseling strategy for mood difficulties and anxiety. And so it's really just the idea that what we think affects what we feel and then what we do. And so in the video, they talked about how sometimes depression or low mood can be influenced by negative thoughts, and the idea that it's very helpful to stop those thoughts or to change the channel with those thoughts. And that's really what CBT is all about, that when we notice some of the negative thoughts that we're having, if we can shift those, we can change how we feel and what we do. The other thing about the CBT triangle is that you can shift any part of the triangle and it will make a difference. So even if you shift your behaviors and force yourself to shift your behaviors, it's going to change how you think and how you feel. And so lots of times for younger kids, getting in touch with their thoughts is a huge developmental challenge for them. It's not appropriate for us to expect them to be able to do that, but they can change some of the things that they do, which will impact their CBT triangle. So let's talk a little bit about how you can help your child or your teen with mood issues. So the first is encouraging social connection. So making FaceTime a priority, making sure that you spend time in your day as a family with no electronics, no TV, where people are just talking to one another, and kind of face-to-face, eyes to eyes. Reducing their social isolation, so getting them outside with people, involved in things as much as you can. Trying to reduce their social media use, so making sure that although they get some time with that, it's also balanced with lots of time off of their screens. Getting your child or teen involved, so getting them involved in tasks around the house, getting them involved in contributing to tasks or chores inside the house, outside the house, having them help with grocery lists, having them help with meal prep, just really getting them involved in day-to-day activities at home. Promoting volunteerism. This is a really good one for all of us, but there's lots of research that shows how giving back and being grateful about what we have can change our brains. And so getting out there and giving back in any way that you can is a really amazing thing for your kids. So it could be formal volunteer opportunities or even just taking a walk in the park and picking up garbage that you see, and talking about how you're giving back and helping your community. Doing things that make them happy. So we talked about this a little bit before, just doing your best to give them all of the opportunities that you can, to have the time and the materials to do things that they like. Knowing when to seek professional help. In the video, they talked about kind of using a lot of those coping skills as kind of a baseline of strategies to manage mood. But if you notice that those things aren't working, seeking professional help may be a good route to go. So lots of times when you're at that point of seeking professional help, you may feel like it's not necessarily your child or teen's choice anymore to get the help that they need. And lots of times when when kids are stuck in their mood or behavior, they may not see the benefits of that. But getting your child or teen involved in making some treatment choices as much as you can be really helpful. So they may not have the choice of going to the counselor, but they may have the choice of picking from a couple counselors, reading their bios, or even looking at their picture and deciding. They could have the opportunity of deciding, does it happen at school? Does it happen on weekends or after school? Just giving them as many choices as you can with accessing treatment. And then also important that you know your options. There's a huge range of resources and supports out there, ranging from books and apps that kids can use themselves, to self-directed workbooks, to online counseling supports, face-to-face counseling supports, and even doctors or hospital supports. So it's really knowing your options and using what you think fits the stage that you're at. And then making physical health a priority. So getting your child or teen moving in any way that they will, setting limits on screen time, providing nutritious and well-balanced meals, encouraging plenty of sleep, and maintaining a routine. Lots of times kids can get stuck in what they're doing and forget to do things that can help them. And so helping them establish a routine through a calendar that's visible in their room or in a common space, using an app, really kind of scheduling out self-care coping skill activities each day for them, and letting them kind of check that off can be a super helpful thing that you can do to encourage them to use coping skills. So here's some Durham community resources. So Durham Community Mental Health Center, that is formerly CARIA, and it's a community health center that offers mental health support, but also physical health. So they have doctors, nutritionists, counselors, they do group, they do individual, and so calling them to see what they have available is a great first step. Underneath there, you'll see the social work access line. That's a Durham Catholic initiative. It's not a crisis line, so if you are in crisis or have any urgent needs, it wouldn't be the right place for you to access. You can see on the top right corner, there are some crisis lines that you could use if you heard of your child or saw anything related to self-harm or suicidal ideation, or were really just in crisis in some way. Using those crisis lines would be most appropriate. But the social work access line is a line that you can access by calling and leaving a message or using the online form. It's basically a way for you to reach out to a school social worker, a Durham Catholic school social worker. So if you're noticing some changes in your child or teen and wanting some advice, that would be the place to call. If you were wondering about resources at school or in the community, that would be the place that you could call. And when you leave a message or complete an online form, the social worker will call you back. And then in the bottom right corner, you'll see KinArc and Catholic Family Services. These are two counseling agencies that specialize in children's mental health. Catholic Family Services also offers support and counseling to adults, couples, families, but accessing these agencies through their central intake, they'll be able to connect you with what's most appropriate within their agency. You'll see on the screen some parent resources. So Bounce Back is a government-funded online counseling resource. There are counselors that you would be connected with, and they would work cooperatively with you through a workbook to focus on different coping skills. It's something that teens can access, parents can access, but they can also access it on behalf of their teen. So to get some help knowing how to support their teen. And then you'll see by their side in the Choice D Patient and Family Guide to Depression Treatment. Those are both parent workbooks. They give lots of information about how to notice mood difficulties and a bit of a step-by-step guide to how to support your child and access services. Here are some resources for children and teens. So jack.org has a lot of information about mental health, about mood difficulties. They also have a huge focus on being a good helper. So where kids can access some guidance around how to help their friends and get their friends help. Kids Help Phone, pretty famous. It's a phone line for kids. They can access it through text or through phone. They also have a ton of resources on their website. They have interactive games, they have blogs, they have videos, all focused on mental health and coping skills. MindFlip is a workbook that's offered online. It's specifically around teen brain development, how teens can understand what's happening and manage some of that and the impact on their mood. My toolkit is offered by Mind Your Mind. So mindyourmind.ca is a fabulous resource, really focused on mental health and mood. And so you'll see around that square a ton of different activities. Some of them are interactive, some of them are drawing activities. They're really all focused on educating kids about how they're feeling and what they can do about it. There's also an app there that you'll see, Mood. That's a good mood tracking app. So it lets kids track how they're feeling, what might have caused them to feel a certain way, kind of rate it a little bit. And so that's something parents can use if the kids let them, to see how they're feeling and what's kind of happening in their life. And then Walk Along Your Journey to Mental Wellness is, again, another workbook based website where kids can access some support, understanding what they're feeling and what they can do about it. And now some apps for kids. There's tons of stuff out there, but these are some of my favorites. So Super Better, Mindshift, Mindful Powers, and Sesame Street app, those are all mindfulness apps. So they're really focused on helping kids relax their bodies and minds, helping them ground themselves if they're feeling very overwhelmed. They have lots of guided activities, lots of activities based on different situations. So it could be a social situation, could be a test-taking situation. And it's a really great resource for kids to start understanding how mindfulness can help and learning some of the strategies. Obviously, Mindful Powers and Sesame Street, those are really focused for younger kids, but Super Better and Mindshift, they have some resources for younger, but also lots for tweens and teens. And then MoodFit and ADAP, these are CBT-based apps that people can use to track how they're feeling, to rate that, and also to challenge some of their thoughts and get more active with their coping skills. And so you heard me mention before about CBT being one of the most effective strategies for mood and anxiety. And so those apps are really based on CBT material. So I wanted to just end with a quick video. These are some real life teens talking about how they feel, what their struggles are, and what they're hoping parents can do to help.
I feel weird and awkward. I feel like that's just normal now that I'm a teenager.
This is a hard time we're going through.
We're growing, we're changing.
There's obviously a lot of awesome aspects, but
I feel like school is one of the biggest challenges. It's like really stressful trying to get good grades because I want to make my parents happy and my teachers happy. So it's like focusing on other people.
It's like you're never going to be good enough unless you only get A's. And if you get a B, well, then there goes your chances of life and being in college.
I've lost all motivation, to be honest.
You know, I wanted to be friends with the popular kids so I can go to the good parties.
When you see other people hanging out without you or doing something that you want to be doing, it's like, why can't I be there? Did they not invite me? Am I not good enough?
We get so caught up in like what other people think about us.
Why act some way that I'm not in order to impress people that I don't like?
I want to be accepted for who I am.
I compare myself to others, which I think is very unhealthy. Oh, well, I don't look like this girl, I don't look like this person, and like we have different body shapes. I have pimples and they don't. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough.
I kind of hate to admit this, but it does kind of give me satisfaction when I see that I have over a certain amount of views or over a certain amount of likes.
It's like super addicting. I'll sit there and I'll scroll there for hours and just do nothing and be super unproductive, which is terrible. I hate that.
People can be mean sometimes if it's a certain person that has a certain power amount of following or that's really, you think is really cool, and they say something bad about you. It would really hurt your feelings.
Teenagers
bullies are definitely, they're mean.
When I'm bullied, it makes me feel sad, maybe depressed even.
I've always been on the bigger side, and I've experienced a lot of bullying from that. It hurts a lot, especially when you're at school, and for a lot of kids, school is their safe space.
If it's online, it's easier to report them or block them, but if it's in person, they tell you tell teachers, but when you tell teachers, they're like, it's just kids playing around. It's not cool to bully somebody because it could make them feel really terrible, and it could lead them to do very bad things like abuse themselves, and the worst is suicide.
Mental health is real. Just because, someone's a 12-year-old girl doesn't mean they can't experience depression or anxiety. And I know from experience where parents will be like, well, that's just, you see that on social media, or it's a trend, everyone has that. Well, it's like, no, it takes a big toll on kids.
I think the parents should definitely be supportive. That's the first step. Do as much as you can to help them follow their dreams.
Encourage them, be happy for them, support them. Remind me of how good I'm doing and that they're proud of me. That would really make me feel good and motivate me to work harder.
Understand that school is hard. I think they should definitely accept their children for who they are. They should try and get to know them better, ask them questions.
Just be like, hey, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm yours. I love you so much.
I feel like there should be much more patience with us. Just give us some time to grow.
It's not easy being a teenager, and sitting there yelling at us, disciplining us all the time doesn't make it any better.
Every once in a while, I'd like to hear that they were wrong. I never hear that.
Being an adult and approaching a teen, you definitely have to have an open mind. Dad, put yourself in my shoes.
My mom always tries to help solve my problems when I just want her to really listen.
Mom, Dad, listen to me.
Listen to me.
Listen, please. Listen and don't make their feelings feel less valid.
Just give us a shot and hear what we have to say.
So I always like to end with that video, because a lot of what kids need as parents, we strive to give them, and we may already be giving them. And so it's important to just keep up being the parents that you are to your kids, because they do appreciate it. I think that video also reminds me of what a different world teens are living in, kids are living in, and we as parents are parenting in. And so social media and how it impacts teen development and teen self-esteem is no joke. And so I think that it's really recognizing that added stressor when we look back on our teenage years compared to our teens' teenage years, because they have some unique pressures that we didn't have, and a lot of them coming through social media. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that the information that I've shared has been helpful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to listen. Thank you.